Well, I guess for our listeners and for Padres fans, Kevin, and like for the layman, which includes, I think, us, like what are we supposed to believe and how is this thing going to play out?
Including me.
Right.
Yeah.
As a layman. And every once in a while, a sports journalist has to kind of figure all this stuff out or try and then explain it as best he can to the average reader, which is all I am, this average guy who has to pretend to be a lawyer. And talk to lawyers and all that. So here goes with that disclaimer. Like it is clearly he said, she said, or she said, he said. Look, the trust is very clear that the trustee has the right to appoint the control person. Sheel Seidler contends the trust that Matt Seidler should be removed as trustee because of other issues, including what she alleges to be fraud, withholding funds, what is termed fiduciary responsibility, that he and before him, Robert Seidler, two of Peter's brothers, that they did not honor the terms of the trust. So then that would negate actions they've taken, including making Jon Seidler control person. A lot of this lawsuit, and this is not unusual for a lawsuit, a lot of this lawsuit is laying out an argument for the public, and it is that Sheel Seidler should be the control person. That's not necessarily what she's suing for, but she's suing as a part of this negate Jon Seidler the control person, and she makes the distinction that she is the beneficial. That's not the she, by virtue of the trust, she is the beneficial owner of 25% of the project. That could be an important fact, but it's not really now because the trust clearly says Matt Seidler gets to decide who the control person is. So that's where we're at right now.
So it doesn't sound messy at all.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I could have gone on for another 20 minutes, but
yeah.
Here we are. So
yeah, we all have to become experts on lawsuits and litigation and very quickly, by the way. So behind the scenes, Kevin, with people that aren't involved in this, litigation and lawsuit and ownership, the people in the front office, guys like, I don't know, AJ Preller trying to build a baseball team. Do you know what the mood is, or what is the mood with people in that organization, which, I'm sure they kind of had winds of what was going on recently. I don't know if people were like completely shocked by this, but this offseason, what has been the mood inside the organization?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. The more people are in the know, the more quiet they are. And, others wondering what the heck's going on. Why aren't we doing things? That includes people that are involved, but maybe are not involved at the highest level and don't really know all of this stuff. No one. Well, they say they were, and maybe there was an element of surprise. She actually went through with it. This was something that, was rumored. Her fight for this was rumored for, well over a month, if not longer internally. But, it's what prompted me to ask questions and press on who was going to be the control person. And in recent days, you heard that this was coming, and then boom, it came. And so what effect does it have? Look, the Padres haven't done anything. And I think I wrote this yesterday, and I think maybe I alluded to it before, that questions over the control person, that is something agents and other people in Major League Baseball have pointed to as a reason why the Padres haven't done anything. Well, that's okay, maybe. But last year they signed Yuki Matsui. That's all they've done by now. I mean, traded Juan Soto. You can't overlook that. That
Right.
ended up changing the fortunes of 2024. But in terms of signing, like Yuki Matsui, the some of the biggest contributors on this team, and this has happened in many off seasons, came after February or in February or beyond. So we can't just automatically say that this has slowed down the Padres. Look, they were talking about before the end of the season, and gosh, go back as far as 2021 about how there needed to be a shift in how they spent their money. And they were talking going into this offseason about, look, payroll is going to be higher, but it ain't going to be much higher than last year. And there were a lot of moves that needed to be made. Look, yeah, they're listening on Dylan Cease. They are trying to find options for Luis Arise, perhaps, other people, but they don't have any takers right now. And, they are also waiting next week, likely, find out whether they get Sasaki. And that will have an effect on, okay, now what do they have to do? The trickle-down effect, because their needs are their needs, and one of them is a starting pitcher. So we can't draw a direct line in bold confidently from this situation to their lack of activity.
That's good perspective. Kevin Acee is with us here, Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. I think you wrote about it's always a possibility when you have infighting or litigation of a sale, and we've seen sales play out across major professional American sports when something like this plays out. Not always, but it is at times, the end result. Would you consider a sale of the Padres organization to be possible?
Sure. And that's only because of what you said. Broncos, Orioles, portion of the Chargers. These are in the last couple of years based on trust disputes, basically. And, you could definitely say that those disputes, at least in every instance, at least partially led to, and a couple instances absolutely led to the sale of the team. So yeah, sure. And like, I think even people involved would say, yeah, you can't rule that out. It does not seem that is their intention. The why we can't rule it out is because, look, Peter Seidler was not a billionaire, despite what a lot of people think by Googling him. And neither is Sheel Seidler, and neither are any of the Seidler siblings. If this goes to where it's like, hey, this person's in control and I don't want to be a part of this anymore, like at least a portion of the team could be sold.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we all know the court of public opinion, Kevin, and how fast that court acts. And right now, I'm sure you've seen it, the court of public opinion is firmly on Sheel's side with Padres fans. And for the new group, Jon and Matt, and if this remains status quo and Jon remains the control person and says something, this gets settled or whatever the case may be, I don't know how long this is going to last. But right now, the court of public opinion, they're not on the side of the brothers of Peter Seidler. So with them being essentially to the fan base now kind of enemy number one, like what kind of uphill battle do they have to gain trust back from this fan base who right now is firmly against them?
I would say quite a big one. I would say winning, investing in the team and winning would basically cure it. That's kind of the way fans are, right? And rightfully so. Every offseason, especially when there hasn't been a lot of moves, there's trepidation. And now you throw this in there and you throw the wife of the beloved owner into the mix, saying that she's been mistreated and she wants to control the team. And people have their ideas of how Peter Seidler ran the team and what he did. Much of that is indisputable. Some of it probably should be looked at a little closer. But the beloved owner, I revered the man myself. His wife is a sympathetic figure. And as I pointed out, I'm not denigrating Sheel Seidler or her representatives in any way. This is what like a lawsuit does a lot of times. It is to the actual complaint, the 50 pages, in this case, 50 pages, but the actual complaint is to like get it on the public record, some things that you want to say. And this one was well done.
Yeah.
Kevin, did Major League Baseball or does Major League Baseball, are you aware, do they require a succession plan for chairman and controlling? They do, right?
Yes. And Peter had one put out, and I do not know how detailed, like this name, but this person will decide. Peter had to do that when he took over in 2020 from Ron Fowler as the control person. So, and it was his, decision that decision would be made by first Robert, and then if Matt took over, which is the case now, and then Jon, if it came to that. So he had his successor trustees. And so Robert obviously stepped aside, personal decision in May. Matt is now the guy in charge, and that was Peter's wish. Now, you can look, Peter could have been a little more specific. I think everybody would agree with that. And you can rightfully say, what the heck to that, right? But Matt does detail why that is. I wrote about it in my story. He detailed it in his letter, and the Padres have created, I'm not sure exactly who created it, Padres Seidler Trust, whatever. There is a peterseidlertrust.com. The letter is on there. And he details why. That was Peter's style. His way of doing business was entrusting the people that worked for him and with him that earned it with decision-making power. And he, look, that's all consistent with what I know. Peter Seidler never told me Sheel or no Sheel, right? But what I will say, and I'm being careful not only because it's like I'm just an impartial observer, but also maybe I have some further reporting to do. But Peter Seidler entrusting his brothers to make these decisions, and Peter Seidler's brothers being more involved than the public knew, is consistent with my reporting over the last 3 years since Peter took over. So it's not like this is out of the blue. It's out of the blue for a lot of people, but it's just factual is what I can say.
Who does AJ report to at this moment in time?
Eric Katsenda and Eric Grupner, in that order is my understanding, and has been since Peter was ill. But Eric Katsenda is the control person now. As I wrote, the expectation by multiple people is that, and that's multiple league sources, is that by spring training, barring Sheel Seidler getting, I think, what's called a temporary restraining order or an injunction. Again, not a lawyer, in case anybody couldn't tell. But barring her doing not only taking but basically winning a legal action, MLB will still vote on that before spring training, the control people. And I think it's a 3/4 vote. I don't think it's 50%. I think it's just a 3/4 vote. Basically, the owners / control people will vote, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, generally, when someone is put forth, it's a formality.
And Jon is the person that's been put forth, correct?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So my next question to follow that up with is, do you know the relationship between Jon and AJ?
I don't know that there is one, other than that they've obviously spent time together, talked. Jon has been around a lot.
Okay.
I would imagine, based on both my reporting and kind of the way the Seidlers operate, that, and what I've heard about Jon, is they're going to come in and basically try to keep it status quo. A lot of trust in AJ Preller and a lot of trust in Eric Grupner.
My final question, Kevin, would be, what was Sheel's level of involvement with the organization when Peter was living?
Okay, I want to first say that obviously I'm not a part of the organization.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
My reporting, and I think that people knew that I talked with Peter a lot, spent a lot of time with Peter. So my understanding was extremely minimal. So that was my understanding. And it has been not just like from a couple people. That's my eyes, my ears, and talking to several people over the course of years before any of this. So not in like, hey, I need to get some information in the past. I'm talking in real-time information. My understanding was minimal. Now, I'm not making a statement on what Peter's wishes were. I'm not making a statement on what her wishes were or anything like that. I will tell you that from my understanding in many conversations with Peter, his oldest daughter, Sadie, who I believe is 12, is among the biggest Padres fans in the world. Yeah. And that there was I don't want to overstate this. I think there was an expectation that not an expectation, because Peter, I don't believe, would do that to one of his kids. But I was not going to be surprised, let's just put it that way, that Sadie became a part of the Padres organization. I mean, she was the one who traveled. If you remember, in 2022, I believe, and I wrote this at the time, Peter was in at least one city on every road trip, every multi-city road trip, showing up in Pittsburgh here, showing up in Cleveland here, showing up wherever, and Sadie was often with him. Sheel was occasionally with him. That doesn't, again, I'm not making a statement. You asked me a question. I'm giving you my best reporting based on ever since Peter was the control person. And let's remember, he became the control person after the 2020 season. Mm-hmm. That ever since then, that I have talked to people, because I will tell you also in numerous conversations with Peter never Peter both thought nothing was ever going to kill him, right?
Right,
These
yeah.
health issues, and also was very aware that his health was compromised and that he was not likely, going to live as long as he wanted.
Yeah.
All right. And so Peter did talk a lot about, to a certain extent, not confiding in me. I won't be called as a witness. I don't have any information here,
Yeah.
but he did talk a lot about this being in his family for a long time. And, and I wrote about this, so I can talk about this. A pointed question I asked him in the last interview he ever gave, and it was over an hour conversation. That would it be Sheel? And he declined to answer it. So that's as far as I know.
Real quick, Kevin, we got about 30 seconds here. From a 1 to 10, 1 being, it's not that big of a deal, to 10 being like this could potentially be franchise changing. It's a massive deal. Where would you rate this news that just came out the last couple of days?
Man, that's such a great question because it has the potential to be a 9 or a 10, right? It does, but I don't know, but it has that potential. It just does. It's not a 1, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be overreacting. I don't want to be, this person that does that. I try very hard to not be that person. I err on that side, but you can't deny it has the potential to be a 9 or a 10.
Kevin, thank you as always. Great reporting. Happy New Year.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Kevin.
the time. We know it's busy, and thanks for doing it here.
Right on, and I'll be updating the story very quickly with some response from Sheel Seidler's counsel.
All right.
Awesome. We'll keep a lookout for that. Thank you.
We will. All right. Check that out. SDUT. Thank you. Kevin Acee, who's been our Padres insider here on San Diego Sports 760 and Jon and Jim. We'll react on the other side.